and today I will inform you about the polygraph, which is the most common tool of lie detection used by the police, the FBI, the CIA, the Defense Department, and other government agencies in criminal investigations as well as pre-employment screening. So let's begin with the definition of the polygraph. The polygraph, from the Greek poly, which means many, and graph, which is to write, means literally many writings. So as defined in the 2004 report presented by the British Psychological Society, the polygraph is a set of equipment that accurately measures the changes in such bodily activities as blood pressure, heart rate, respiration, which is breathing, and palm sweating. These changes occur due to the emotional arousal provoked by lying. So in order to conduct a test, the examiner attaches the following devices to a person. An arm curve to measure blood pressure, one tube around chest, one tube around abdomen to measure the heart rate and respiration, and also 2 electrodes to fingertips to measure palm sweating. Then all these devices have sensors. They send signals to the computer and they write separate lines on a chart. So basically, that's where the name many writings come from. And then this chart is transferred to a strip of paper, and the examiner reads the results from it. The whole process of the polygraph examination has 3 main parts: the initial interview, the examination itself, and the post-test interview. So during the initial interview, the examiner asks the basic questions such as, is your name Tatiana? Are you 27 years old? Which basically help him to establish the norms of a person's psychological behavior. So during the examination itself, there are 4 different techniques which can be used. So it means one of these can be used: the relevant-irrelevant test technique, then the control question test, the directed lie test, and the guilty knowledge test. And I'm going to describe all those 4 a little bit later. And during the post-test interview, basically the results are being evaluated, and any significant changes in the vital signs while answering some questions indicate that the person was lying while answering them. So now that we know how the polygraph works, let's start with those above mentioned 4 techniques. The first one is the relevant-irrelevant technique. So as the name suggests, it consists of relevant questions and irrelevant questions. I will be mostly talking about criminal investigations. That's why I would say crime-relevant and crime-irrelevant questions. So the crime-relevant questions basically are connected to the crime. For example, did you steal the money from the company last night? And the examiner knows that both guilty and innocent people will say no. The crime-irrelevant questions have absolutely nothing to do with the crime. It can be questions such as, is today Wednesday? And the examiner also knows that both people will tell the truth. Then the answers to both questions are compared, and the higher emotional response to crime-relevant questions indicates that the person was lying. But modern examiners criticize these tests a lot because they believe that crime-relevant questions are always more emotionally provocative than crime-irrelevant. And also, an innocent person can show a higher emotional response only because he or she is afraid of not being believed. So the second type, or the second test, type of the polygraph test is the control question test. It compares the results of the crime-relevant questions with the control questions. So control questions are very vague, very broad in scope, and they usually refer to a subject's past. For example, have you ever hurt anybody who trusted you in your life? So it's based on the premise that the innocent person would be more afraid of such control questions than crime-relevant questions, because basically it refers to his past truthfulness, while relevant questions ask questions which he knows about, asks about crimes that he knows he never committed. And vice versa, the guilty person would be more worried about the crime-relevant questions. So though this technique is more improved than relevant-irrelevant technique, it still has a major flaw because the control questions are not standardized. It means the questions such as, have you ever hurt anybody who trusted you in your life, cannot be asked to somebody who never hurt anybody. So this problem is solved in the next technique, which is the directed lie test. It's basically absolutely the same as the control question test. The only difference is that instead of control question test, a control question, we use the name directed lie question, and it's in a standardized form. For example, have you ever told one lie in your life? So it's hard to argue that there's anybody on earth who never told a lie in his life. So it basically can be applied to anybody. And as I said before, innocent people would be worried more about this type of questions than about crime-relevant questions. And the fourth technique, which is widely used in the polygraph examinations, is the guilty knowledge test. So it's a multiple choice test, which is considered to be the most scientifically sound. It always includes one option which is known only to a guilty person. And I would like to show how it works on the example of the O.J. Simpson murder case. As many of us may know, in 1994, former American football star and actor O.J. Simpson stabbed his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Goldman to death. So the type of question that could be used in investigation is, how was Nicole murdered? Was she shot? Was she stabbed? Was she strangled? Was she drowned? And the question, was she stabbed, would basically trigger the higher response in O.J. Simpson than other options, and it will show that he's lying. So let's summarize what we have learned so far about the polygraph examination. The polygraph is widely used in criminal investigations as well as pre-employment screening. It measures changes in the body activities which occur due to the emotional arousal provoked by lying, and they have also focused on 4 major techniques, which are relevant-irrelevant test, control question test, directed lie test, and guilty knowledge test. Thanks.